Welcome back to the channel, guys. I've got my notes in hand here. Today we're going to talk about salvage titles and the numbers of these cars with and without accidents. So you know that for North America, there's roughly about 2,400 of these cars that were produced. Well, here I've got a list of, so for the US 49 states, there's 2347. If you factor in Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, all those, it's slightly higher. And I think the number is just over 2,400. So the number of cars that you see in the spreadsheet that was released earlier this week, there are roughly about 400 cars that are either exported, salvage title, they're reported stolen, just any other things like that. Something other than a clean title. They caught on fire, flood, etc. Well, so of those, we've got 119 that were exported, and very few of them were actually purchased and then exported immediately, but that did happen. There were some that went to Hong Kong, went to Africa, but for the most part, what happens is they go to Copart or IAAI or one of these salvage insurance auctions. So overseas, you get a lot of buyers that are interested in these because they can fix them a lot cheaper than they can fix them here for. So maybe not the same standards, cheaper labor, etc. So that's why you see a lot of them go overseas. So there were 119 that were exported, but it's probably like 115 of those were salvage title exported. They weren't clean title. There were 8 that were scrapped. 1 was never titled, and that may have been a mid-year pre-production car. You know, they were trying out some of the things that were changed on these mid-year. There were 17 that were reported stolen. And of those 17, 1 was a driving school car from Lexus while they owned it. So there's probably a story there, like maybe somebody stole it at a driving event. I'm sure there's definitely a story, but out of those 17, 5 of those were recovered. The rest of them have not been seen since. There are 17 flood title cars. A lot of them got hit in Hurricane Harvey, and then very recently Hurricane Milton, Helene. And so it's kind of sad to see, but that does happen. So if you have a major historical weather event, some of these are going to go away. 69 are salvage title not rebuilt, not exported. So they went to a salvage auction, they were sold, but they stayed here. They were either parted out or somebody's holding on to them to rebuild it later, something like that. But either that or they were damaged to the point where you just simply can't rebuild them. They were issued, the state of Florida and some other states, they issue what's called a junk title, which means it's never going to be on the road again, things like that. There are 57 out there with salvage or rebuilt titles, including 2 of the flare yellow cars. One of them's rebuilt, one of them I don't think is back on the road. So of the 11 flare yellows, there's 9 that still have a clean title. There are still 8 GS-Fs out there that have never been titled. Of those 8, Lexus owns 3 of them, and those are driving school cars. So once they're done using them, I think all that's left now, they're just using them as lead follow cars, so like instructor cars. Once they're done with those, they're gonna go to auction. They've never been titled, so the first person that buys those will be the first owner. And that is kind of cool, but it's also not cool that, it's spent the first 10 or 20,000 miles of his life on a track. But, for some people, that's not a big deal. For me, that is a big deal. I make sure that I make note of it on the spreadsheet that it was a driving school car, because for some people, it does make a difference. The 3 that are still left for the driving school cars that have never been titled, 2 are ultra white, 1 has a black interior, 1 has a red interior, and then 1 is the ultrasonic blue Mica 2.0 with a black interior. So that's the blue car with a black interior. So after you take all of that away, what's left? 1,271 of these cars for the USA, 49 states, and not including Hawaii, Guam, Puerto Rico, etc. 1,271 cars with no damage reported on the Carfax. And so we know, based on looking through the service history on some of these, that there are even more that they have a clean title, but they even discuss it in the service history that this had paint work, it was towed in, it needs to replace the bumper, the fender from an accident. Well, that was probably because it was done outside of insurance. If it's done outside of insurance, it's not going to be reported on the Carfax in most cases. So I would say a good estimate for that, probably in the area of 200 or so cars. So that leaves us with just about 1,000 cars that remain here in January 2025 that are clean title, no accidents. And that's pretty crazy when you think about it. You talk about 2,400 cars, there's 1,000 cars left that are, clean title, no issues, basically, no stories. Those of you that are out there looking, there's a pretty high likelihood that you're gonna find one that has at least an accident. So the reason I take with a grain of salt minor accidents on Carfax is because sometimes they can be a pretty major accident. Sometimes it could just be a parking lot boo-boo, maybe just a slight touch up on the bumper, but it was turned in under insurance. It could be a bumper cover replacement. Or in our instance, my wife and I have a Honda Accord that we bought brand new. And when it was 6 months old, she was driving it, sitting at a stop sign. Somebody came around a corner too fast, ran inside of her, T-boned her. Well, they did $22,000 worth of damage, and this is in 2014, $22,000 worth of damage, and all it shows on the Carfax is a minor side impact. That's it. There was frame damage. They didn't total the car because it was brand new, but I mean, it's pretty amazing to see the variance of what you see on Carfax. You may have just a parking lot boo-boo, or you hit something in the road. I have seen windshield replacements show up on the Carfax as an accident/damage reported. And so that's not really fair because you've turned it in under insurance. Now, yes, on these cars, a windshield replacement is higher than an Accord. Accord's $200 or $300. It's like $2,000 on these cars because you have the heads-up display thing and like all the cameras, and there's a lot more involved. I get it, but I guess the threshold that an insurance company has is probably what triggers that. So all I'm saying is, if you're looking for one of these cars, make sure you do your due diligence and find out what the real cause of the accident was. Now, in the spreadsheet that I have, where I keep track of the pictures of everything when they come up for sale, some of these private sales, they actually show pictures of the accident, so I make sure to keep that on file. So if there is something, I've seen some where there was something that got hit on the door. Well, so then you have to blend everything. So the whole side of the car may have been repainted for just something that happened on the side of the door. So anyway, I feel like I'm rambling on here, but my point is just make sure you do your due diligence. There's nothing wrong with these cars that have accidents on the Carfaxes. So it does affect the value slightly, but I think for a minor accident, that should be very minimal. So if you have a car that you were looking at that was $55,000 and it's got 5 accidents on the report, sure, you better be looking and figuring that out. But if it's one minor, just figure out what happened. If it happened 7-8 years ago, you're probably not going to be too concerned with it, especially if it was probably a bumper repair or something like that, which is pretty common. So if it says it's intermediate or severe damage on the Carfax, I may look at other vehicles first. So one other thing to keep in mind, when these cars come up for sale, people are quick to jump on the very good ones. Even like this car wasn't even for sale for 45 minutes until I had a deposit on it, and there were other people trying to knock down this guy's door to get this car. There was one that just sold yesterday here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that had 14,000 miles on it. They were asking $57,000, and it sold in under 24 hours. So I inquired about it too, because I mean, it was perfect. It had paint protection film on it and everything. So the cars like that, they get snatched up very quickly. If you see a car that's been for sale for 3, 4, 5 months, there's probably a reason for that, because these cars don't generally sit around unsold. They sell pretty quick. There's always a demand for them. And if you're out there looking and you come across everything that ticks all the boxes that you're looking for, but it has a bunch of accidents on it, just wait. So that if you're worried about that, just wait a little while. There will be more that come along. However, you have to keep in mind the market on these cars is starting to creep up, so you don't want to wait too long. But there's always at any given time, even despite the few amount of cars, there's always at least 10 to 20 of these available online. So there's always cars, and they come and go. And so that's why you see a lot of these cars that they do have multiple owners. Some of them are, I think the highest one is an 11 owner car. But I would say on average at this point, we're 10 years in from production. If you see a car that has 3, 4, maybe even 5 owners, that's not unusual. That's not unheard of. So, you know, I wouldn't say that's anything to be worried about. The service history would definitely be something that I would be more concerned about. So anyway, I just wanted to share that info with you guys, and thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.